HighGuard was disrespected on all fronts. It did not deserve the hate, but the team Wildlight definitely put his game in a shitty situation. Now let's start from where they went wrong and everyone involved. Starting with Wildlight. Nobody knew about this game except Wildlight Entertainment and whatever higher power they believe in. They originally wanted to shadow drop the game, however, they went a completely different route from the one they laid out for themselves originally, once Jeff Keighley stepped in. We'll get back to him in a few minutes. Wildlight didn't stick to their guns, pun intended, and the game was bound to fail from their first and only trailer they showed us at the Game Awards. People were shitting on it the very moment they saw the game. Now, let me be honest, when they showed the trailer at the Game Awards, me and all of my homies didn't know what the hell we were looking at, and by the end, when it was known to be a live service game, I was turned off a little bit, but was still willing to give it a chance because it's free. I wasn't shitting on the game as it didn't deserve it. Nobody knew exactly what it was going to be. The only thing we knew was that it was made by some former Titanfall and Apex Legends devs, hence the shadow drop, and it was a free-to-play PvP raid shooter that had a pretty cool concept. Now, after hearing that, you're probably thinking, wow, this game sounds like it had a lot going for it. How did it squander so much potential? Well, when the game finally came out a few weeks after its reveal, within that first match, you could instantly figure out that the game had some issues, starting with the most important part of a live service game. The servers. I'm not gonna lie, the servers were pretty damn buggy. At first I thought it was due to a mass amount of people jumping on it all at once, which according to SteamDB, it hit almost 100,000 players on Steam. But as the numbers began to dwindle, I realized that wasn't the case at all. You would think with less people on the servers, it would run better, but no. I put in 20 something hours on that game and a good 7 of those hours was me rubber banding all over the map. It was really annoying. Now when it worked, it ran smooth as butter, but it was never an in between. I'm either having a smooth match or it was buggy. One of the two. To continue, with the game only having 3v3 PvP, it felt dry at times, especially having to learn the new gameplay loop, not knowing what was going on. The game has a tutorial mode, but it doesn't do the best at describing how everything works, so you really have to jump in and learn as you go. So the way the matches work, you start off at your base. That's where you can buy loot if you have enough currency, then secure your walls like in Rainbow Six to protect your base from being blown up like Search and Destroy. Then you go out and seek loot like in Apex or any other Battle Royale game. Now this is where the boring part sets in if you don't know what's going on. You gather all the loot you need so you and your team can make your way over to this thing called the Shield Breaker, which basically acted as a key to get into your enemy's base. But if the opposition isn't doing the same thing as you, it becomes hard to find any action since it was only 3v3 to start off. HighGuard did take a lot of elements from different games and it worked, it just wasn't executed the proper way. With the matches being 3v3, it was really hard to run into enemies at first since most of the maps are kinda big. I will say, when your team runs to the enemy, the gunfights were pretty damn good. All of your characters have different abilities at your disposal that can help aid you in a fight. The game did make you think about when to flank, when to activate your powers, and or run straight to the shield breaker while the enemies are occupied. This game has its highs, but the lows were in the abyss. It felt undercooked. Definitely needed more time in the oven. Also, the loot always spawned in the same places, so that made for predictability. It would have been cool to see loot auto-generate in different areas. I think that would have aided into running into enemies more frequently and more gunfights breaking out. Now, when they added 5v5, that's when the action really started to pick up. I still don't know why they skipped 4v4, but I think that could have possibly been a sweet spot in terms of balance and action. When you started base fights, it was too chaotic at times, but I personally enjoyed it. I think they should have launched with 5v5 off the rip, but I digress. Now let's talk about Jeff Keighley. He is the creator of the Game Awards we know today. So apparently, this man had a chance to play HighGuard early. He liked the game so much that he wanted to show the game off to the world, and ultimately, that backfired. Was that Jeff's fault? No, but he hyped the game up during the Game Awards to the point where I'm pretty sure we all thought we were going to get the experience of our lives the way he was talking. Wildlight was obviously not ready for that spotlight. The trailer they showed just seemed like a big nothing burger. It has me asking one question: why didn't they just say no? Knowing the trailer they had for the world to see wasn't exactly the trailer they would have given us until later down the road. I'm saying that because they dropped a story trailer and it was night and day. Way better than the shit we seen at the Game Awards. I understand this is an opportunity you can't refuse. I mean, hell, for a 1 to 3 minute trailer, that shit cost over $1 million. But damn, if only they had foresight and was able to curve a lot of that damage. I think that was its biggest detriment. HighGuard was hyped up and the people saw how mediocre that trailer was and became highly disappointed because we all know the last trailer slot is normally held for something really special. I think if Wildlight stuck to their original plan, the game would have been received differently, but who knows at this point. I think it's fair to compare it to Apex Legends since that game shadow dropped and became a hit within a year with its release. It allowed the people to really decide on their own if they were going to like the game, not having to worry about internet influence. So because of how they decided to promote the game, people were waiting for the game's downfall, not knowing what it was going to turn out to be. Which transitions me right into my next point. The people, the gaming community to be more specific. To get even more detailed, short, I'm talking about the grifters and caves of the gaming community. I say that because those people are literally cave dwellers. They come out when they see people are going to potentially have a good time and they ruin it. Also, they are trying to squeeze whatever payment they can out of Elon checks from Twitter. It's a shame, really. So shameful that before HighGuard even had legs to run on, they were calling it Concord 2.0 and claiming DOA before they even knew what the actual game was going to look like. They were literally preying on the downfall of HighGuard. It got so bad to the point where on day one of HighGuard, you can go to the reviews on Steam and see everything those folks were saying about the game. People were saying shit like this, quote, fake indie game backed by Tencent with no disclosure. Is everything wrong with the games in one piece of 4 hearts, end quote. I don't know what that last part means. Also, no one knows if it's true that HighGuard was backed by Tencent. As of right now, that has not been confirmed. Then someone else said, the epitome of mid, the game isn't broken, buggy, or offensive in any way, but it also isn't exceptional in any way. If this was the only video game available, I'm sure most people would have a decent time with it. But with thousands of better games around, I can't justify spending more time on this one, especially with the ever-present threat of being shut down and becoming unplayable. I'm glad the game has found some audience, but just remember that any money you spend will likely be down the drain in a year. And I say sooner than that. Don't get me wrong, there were some genuine criticisms about the game, but I'm telling you, that first week or two, folks barely played for an hour and gave half-ass reviews. They didn't give it a fair chance, to be honest, and I don't think they intended to at all. They wanted to shit on it because that's the cool thing to do these days. There should honestly be an hour limit on a game before you write a review on it, so that way it keeps down all of the disingenuous talking points. That can aid in harming the game more than it needs to. Plus, some people will see mixed to negative reviews and not even give it a chance based off of that alone. Most people are sheep, so it does make sense, but I implore you to think for yourself. Folks want to complain about there is nothing new to play or gaming is boring. Well, let me tell you something. With that frame of mind, you're playing yourself. Gaming has never been better. Granted, we do have some bad apples out there, but compare that to the plethora of great games that came out over the last few years, it's unmatched. HighGuard could have always been one of those games that's always in rotation, but it failed. With all of this blame and pointing fingers, we can't help but put all the blame right back on Wildlight. They really underserved themselves and the community as a whole. I'm sure it was a few people that knew the game wasn't ready, and now that I think about it, they probably was going to shadow drop originally based off of that alone and make some necessary changes along the way without much backlash. Expectations would have been non-existent, and the people would have just played the game for what it was instead of what they possibly wanted it to be, since this is another live service game in an already saturated market. It's just sad to see. I really did like the game. I thought it was a lot of fun. Gunfights were cool, the character abilities were a lot of fun to use and allowed for more tactics, but they just couldn't stick the landing. They literally had the background to make something decent that could have resonated more with the people, but all it took was a poor marketing strategy to imbue its depth before the eyes were fully open to see it. There were other things that contributed to hurting the game, like character design and the gun sound effects, but that could have been overlooked with a well-made game, which HighGuard was not. In 2026 and beyond, folks is showing that they don't have time for potential and they are willing to move on if they need to, no matter if they are fickle or not. Do I think this game has some time to turn it around in the near future? Yes, but those chances are very slim. What do I think they can do to improve? Well, starting with getting those servers in order and adding more content, such as new weapons, more map designs, and switching up spawn points for loot. Also, revamp the character designs because some of them look generic, which I just found out they only had a few designers and were given less than the amount of time needed to create those designs. I really wish they delayed the game and either gave us a proper rollout so us as the consumer knew what we was getting ourselves into, or continue with a shadow drop at a later date. This game was obviously not ready for the world to see, and Wildlight paid a hefty price for it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let me know in the comments below. If you want to show more love, click one of the cards you see on the screen to check out my other videos. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.